Hello, I am Washtenaw County Sheriff Jerry Clayton.
And I am Washtenaw Intermediate School District Superintendent Scott Menzel.
Our police officers are seeing children who have been affected by trauma and toxic stress every day. That's why law enforcement is excited about the Handle with Care initiative. This initiative bridges the communication gap between schools and law enforcement to better support the children who need it most. The Handle with Care initiative is simple. When one of your students is exposed to a traumatic event, that could be anything from a house fire to a shooting to domestic violence, a law enforcement officer will notify the designated individuals at your school in the form of a Handle with Care notice to the child's teacher.
Because Washtenaw ISD is committed to supporting educators across our county, we've developed these series of videos that will help you understand some of the short and long-term signs of trauma that you might observe in a child while at school. The videos will also provide you with some helpful information about how you can create a supportive environment in your classroom. Lastly, we'll direct you where you can find even more information on trauma in children. On behalf of the members of the Handle with Care Cross-Sector Implementation Team, thanks for your commitment to supporting the children and youth of Washtenaw County.
Hello, my name is Shannon Novara with Washtenaw Success by Six Great Start Collaborative and Washtenaw's Cradle to Career Collaborative. On behalf of the Cross-Sector Handle with Care Implementation Team, we are so pleased to introduce you to the Handle with Care initiative. Why do we need Handle with Care? You may have heard of the landmark Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACEs, study conducted by the CDC and Kaiser Permanente in 1997. This study looked at over 17,000 people, mostly middle-aged and college-educated, who completed confidential surveys about adverse experiences that occurred in their childhood. The study then looked for correlations between these ACEs and physical and mental health problems later in life. The results were shocking. Almost 2/3 of study participants reported at least one ACE, and more than 1 in 5 reported 3 or more ACEs. The study found that as the number of ACEs a person has experienced increases, so does the risk for many chronic diseases and behaviors, including alcoholism, COPD, depression, drug use, heart disease, liver disease, risk for intimate partner violence, smoking, suicide attempts, adolescent pregnancy, and poor academic achievement, just to name a few. As you probably know from your own work with students and families, Washtenaw County is not immune to ACEs. In fact, according to the 2013 Michigan Behavioral Risk Factor Survey, Washtenaw County residents have a higher percentage of ACEs than the Michigan average. Teachers and school staff may have a good idea which of their students have been affected by adverse childhood experiences, but not always. So how can we help sooner identify children who may need some extra emotional support? Our local law enforcement partners have told us that they are frequently called to the same households over and over again, and often those households have young children witnessing traumatic incidents. What happens to those children when they go to school the next day? What if they're tired, scared, angry? How does that look to teachers? What happens to those children in your classroom? Handle with Care is an initiative that was first piloted in Charleston, West Virginia in 2013 and is now in place throughout West Virginia, as well as Jackson and Eaton counties in Michigan. It's really a fairly simple concept. Essentially, Handle with Care bridges the communication gap between schools and law enforcement so that children who are exposed to potentially traumatic events receive appropriate interventions that will help give them the best chance of succeeding in school. Because as we know, traumatized youth are more likely to skip or drop out of school, use drugs, become violent, and commit crimes. Here's how Handle with Care works. First, law enforcement identifies children at the scene of an incident and asks for their name and the name of their school. Incidents that would initiate a Handle with Care notice could include domestic violence, traffic accidents with injuries, drug overdose, suicide or attempted suicide, natural death, shooting, arrest of a loved one, child abuse or neglect, robbery, home invasion, house fire, a family member taken away by ambulance, or a mental health breakdown of a household member. Again, just to name a few examples. It's important to point out that not all of these incidents are violent or involve a crime. Please avoid making assumptions about why your student has received a Handle with Care notice. It also goes without saying that discussion of students who have received a Handle with Care notice should not leave your school building. Remember that whatever occurred, the family's been traumatized, and we don't want our speculation to add to their trauma. Next, the school district is notified before school starts the next day. Law enforcement will use a special web portal we've created to email a simple notice to the designated individuals at each school district to alert the school that the child was involved in a police incident the previous night and may have academic or behavioral difficulties in the coming days. The school district will send a Handle with Care notice to the child's teacher or teachers before school starts that day. No details of the incident are given, and again, it's important to remember that not all incidents involve violence or a violent crime. The Handle with Care notice gives examples of internal and external distress reactions to look for that the child may exhibit. Lastly, and most importantly, school staff will handle the child with care and respond to him or her in a trauma-sensitive way. As you know, schools are significant communities for children, and teachers are often their primary role models. We want children to feel safe and supported while they're at school. Support can be as simple as, if the child looks really sleepy, maybe they'd like to take a nap in the office, or perhaps that's not a good day to ask them to take a test. You'll find more tips on how you can support children affected by trauma when you view the video in this series that is specific to the age group you teach, or by visiting Washtenaw ISD's Handle with Care website. So what if school interventions are not enough? If you notice that a student is still struggling with the effects of trauma 2 weeks after the original event, or if the student's trauma reaction prevents regular school activities for the student or for other students, simply check the boxes on the original Handle with Care form indicating the behaviors you're seeing and give the forms to your school's designated behavioral health contact. In most cases, this will be a school social worker, counselor, or even your building principal. We have partnered with Washtenaw County Community Mental Health to accept referrals from the designated school contacts when there are concerns about students impacted by trauma. If the student is not eligible for CMH's services, they'll refer them to a provider who can work with that student. In summary, the goals of the Handle with Care initiative are to identify students most at risk, provide teachers with a heads up about at-risk students so they can reinforce safety and comfort at school, connect children with accessible mental health services if needed, and strengthen and improve relationships in the community. Once you've completed this video, please be sure to watch the short video that corresponds to the age of your students. Each video gives age-specific symptoms of trauma and ways you can support children who have been affected. There's also a great video in this series about secondary traumatic stress and how working with traumatized children can affect you and your staff. Lastly, please visit www.washtenawisd.org/handlewithcare for all examples of materials used in Handle with Care, including a flowchart that can be customized for your school, and for more resources to help create trauma-sensitive schools. We hope that as you continue the important work you do every day with children at your school, you'll reflect on the type of stress they might be experiencing out of school. We think you'll find that this reflection will help shift your way of thinking about your students from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. Thanks for your help making Handle with Care initiative a success and for helping to create trauma-informed schools in our county.